Hey, welcome back to the Hub channel. My name is Brandon, and we are going to be doing a very thorough market update today because obviously we had a lot of numbers come out today. We had housing numbers come out. We had some other things come out that we're going to be talking about, but I'm going to bring Rob Roy in here. If you don't know Rob, he is one of the best guys that I know to be talking about the market. Obviously, he's the senior strategist over at the EWO channel, and he knows his stuff. Rob, let's talk markets. Let's dive right into this. What are you seeing right now with the S&P obviously breaking to new high territory on top of the, I don't know if it's like positive housing data that came out this morning or negative. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, the housing market seems to be the gift that keeps on giving, right? And we've talked about that before. It just continues to move to the upside. And then we'll see how that continues. But with rates, with a little bit of a bounce, we'll talk about rates in a minute. But as you said, the main thing to talk about today is the equities market. And here's the current move here. We're having a rally today. Talked about this for a couple weeks here. And just this resistance area just up under the 480 level, as you can see, is being broken today. The wave 3 has moved over. So it didn't move. The wave 3 was just over here from the bar that was the 12th. And so breaking above that level is huge. And one of the things I talk about is my mentor, when I first started trading, always used to talk about third time's the charm. So when you come up to an area of resistance, which we've had here at this 480 level, whatever happens, the third attempt normally stays for a bit. Now, this isn't any sort of a long-term indicator. It's a short to medium term viewpoint. But with this break above 480, assuming it holds into the close, which it looks like it will today, then we want to see if we get a follow-through day on Monday. I would imagine that the shorts will try to step in on Monday. I don't know if they'll come in strongly because we've had, a couple nice up days. But one thing I do know is that if we do look like we're going to get some follow-through, the shorts will bail, and we will likely continue higher, probably up near that wave 5. We got a low there on the tap box of 492, anywhere between there and 510. You would think the 500 big round number would likely be a good target to hit. Look at, pardon me, it's cold up here, Brandon, but I turned the heater off so that I wouldn't get this dry throat stuff. But clearing back above the 10-day moving average over the past 2 trading days, breaking above 480 is significant. We talked about this in the past. Jeffrey Gunlock came out last week and said, hey, he sees a double top in the markets, and he's talking about this high back here from November of 2021. And so we were right back in that area. Jeffrey Gunlock is known as the bond king. So his calls I look at way more on the bond market than I do on the equities market. He needs to stay in his lane kind of thing, as people say. In my opinion, just my opinion, for whatever that's worth. But you can see where we have the wave 5 almost in the same area there on the weekly chart, a really well-constructed 5-wave pattern here on the weekly chart with roughly a 50% wave 4 correction. We're only at an 80% extension, so that 100% extension, which was what would be expected, brings us into the midpoint and awfully close to that 500 level. So an important day today in the markets, especially if we get a follow through on Monday. So closing above it today will be key, but if we can follow through on Monday, that's even more important to the markets. So a pretty good day for the equities. Hey, we're back to the Mag 7, Brandon. Remember last time we talked, they had converted the Mag 7 to the Lag 7. We're all back to the Mag 7 again. So those stocks are doing well. NVIDIA, I imagine we'll look at that, is off to the races. Had a good trade on it and then just bailed too soon because it got a little vertical for me. I was waiting on a pullback, which it didn't give me, so it continued higher. But the interesting thing here Brandon, is the fact that we did have this little bit of a bounce in rates. Rates are calm today, but we've had this little move. I kind of felt like this was just a reflex move off this big downward move we had, but it was enough to, put a little bit of caution into some of the stocks until yesterday, the Qs yesterday, and I'll show you the Qs chart. People are going to be interested in that too, I'm sure. Had actually made a new high yesterday, slightly, but you can see that move to a wave 5, whereas we're still in a 3 over on the SPY. They normally go hand in hand, so it makes you wonder, will this 5 correct into a wave 3? Because on the Qs, we only got the 38.2% correction here on the wave 4, and that looks for a 61.8% fib extension, and we're almost there. We're at 57%, so we're almost at that level. And so I kind of wonder if we might see that 5 relabeled to a 3 here on the Qs. Normally they work hand in hand. And so slight difference in the Elliott Wave labeling, but the chart's looking similar, and you can't discount that move on the Qs. So at least the Qs have taken this TNX in stride. They're clearly looking towards the rate cuts from the Fed. Nothing as far as any sort of a significant move. And last thing I'll mention here before we chat a bit is the fact that I've said I don't see anything to create that kind of a move in rates. I don't know what data we could have. We did have the last CPI report that was just a touch high on the headline number, but in line on the core. And of course, that's because oil just doesn't want anything to do with this market, which is really amazing. But this move up in the S&P today is quite impressive. A lot of people, in fact, we had some conversations in our insiders meeting for our alert subscribers over Evo Trader last night, saying that they felt like this would hold in that 3 times the charm thing. Then on the third attempt, if that didn't hold, then you would have expected some sort of a downward move. So I think the shorts are taking it in the shorts today, if you will, and we'll see on Monday whether or not we're able to get some follow through on this move. But if we can, rate cuts are they're the Kool-Aid for the market, and the market's looking towards the Fed doing it, even though the Fed has come out and said, hey, tap the brakes on all these rate cuts. We've gotten to the point, Brandon, where they were pricing in 7 rate cuts. I don't see that. The market's expecting a rate cut in March. I just don't think they'll cut in March. I think they'll be late to the party on the cuts, but it does seem like that's the next move whenever it occurs, however many we have this year, and that's good enough for the market. That's what it's telling us today.
Yeah, I mean, you unpacked a lot right there, Rob, and I want to talk about a couple of the things. I don't think we're going to see a rate cut in March either. And I think that CPI, and I might be a little bit more of a negative negative Sally? I don't know what that is, but more of a negative Sally here negative Nelly when we're talking here about that CPI, that data that came out. I think the rates were the inflation was a little bit worse than they anticipated. So I think they're in a little bit more of a sticky situation. To see any type of rate increase right now, I think is a welcomed thing in the market. So that might actually be helping the S&P and everything else push higher a little bit as well. Whether it's the chicken and the egg thing or not, I don't know. But yeah, just like you said, shorts are going to be in for a little bit of a kind of a panic hysteria thing if the market does push any higher, because I know there are a lot of short players right now in the market, and not just the S&P. We're talking across the board. So that might lead to more of like a global sized short squeeze if things keep pushing higher, because a lot of people were expecting, I think, a little bit of a pullback and a couple of those gaps to get filled down there. Now, we do have a couple of comments I do want. Oh, yeah. A couple of comments, a couple of questions that we had in the chat here already. Somebody wants to take a look at FSR. Looking to be like kind of a penny stock right now. It's down from $6 all the way down to 78 cents. Oscar's saying no material news in over 3 months. Thinks it's pretty crazy. So maybe take a look at that and tell me what you think there. And then we have a couple other ones that we want to touch on before we get to maybe some more things that I want to talk to you about.
It just feels like Fisker is, I don't know. Are they going to make it? I think that's where the question is in the market. you can see that the institutions bailed right through here. We were holding nicely into October around $6. And then let's take a look at the volume. And as you would expect, there go the institutions. That's what's going on with the stock. The institutions, once we broke below 5, they have a choice, right? We've talked about this before, the importance of the $5 and $10 level. The way it works based on the securities regulations is if you are have a registered investment objective of growth and income, et cetera, you're allowed to own double-digit stocks, $10 or above. If you have an investment objective of aggressive growth, you can go down to $5. So when you come down to a $5 level, that's the line in the sand, if you will, or where the rubber hits the road. How about that one? So we broke it. It came back. It tested it. The institutions chose to bail rather than support it. They could have come in and bought there when we got to 5 to support it, to get it back above it. They chose not to. They chose to get out. So some of the big players don't like what they're seeing out of this company. And so we're in danger of moving to the pink sheets here. You know, I want you to drop below $1. You're likely to move there. I just don't see the catalyst to go higher. When you see this kind of thing with these little bars, if it's on the way up, that means accumulation. When it's on the way down, that means that they're selling. They're trying not to do it in big blocks, you know, so that we don't push it down any further. But they're done with this stock, and it's got a lot of work to do to get. It's going to have to come up with some sort of stellar numbers or something in order to get it back above 5. If it can get back above 5, then you have something. But I don't even see. Oftentimes, when you get these, you know, pretty substantial moves, you can get a tradable bounce. But I don't even see that here. This looks pretty rough to me. I think even if you have speculative dollars that you're looking to put to work on things that are a little more aggressive, I think there's better areas to find than Fisker here. That I just don't see anything good looking here.
Yeah, I agree with you. This is one that I, just looking at the chart, would stay away from, and I don't think that I would play this any which way this Sunday. Next question that we had in the chat is probably one that you were expecting today. Alexandra wants to talk about AMD. I know chip makers are the talk of the town right now, what everybody's looking at. So let's check that one out.
Chips and semiconductors, that's the place to be. And here's another one that had a good trade on this. And once again, took it off a little too soon. When you get these vertical spikes, I like to take those because you get an IV rush into it. I was hoping that maybe we might calm down a little bit and possibly even come back and test this. So I was looking for another entry, but it just continues to power higher. So it's acting just like NVIDIA, where it's just off and running, and you know, you take your trades off, you make a nice gain, you're happy with the gain, and then you look back and say, gosh, I wish I would have held it a little bit longer. But one thing I learned a long time ago, Brandon, is you can't second guess yourself or you're going insane. You make a nice trade, you're happy with the gain when you take it off, regardless of what happens from there. You have to just say, hey, I had a good trade, it could have been better, but you know, if it reverses, then you know, you're right there. But yeah, I don't think AMD's done either. So do you want to chase this move above the 10-day moving average because it's a little bit overbought? But I said the exact same thing about NVIDIA, and it just continues to power higher. So maybe AMD does the same thing. Maybe it runs up to this target here. And for those that aren't real familiar with Elliott Wave and this software, which is from the HUBB organization called Profit Source. Find out more about it at HUBB.com. The Elliott Wave algorithm likes the price of 190. And usually when I say that, you can see the upper end of this is at 200. And when a stock makes a run and it goes to 190, is it really going to stop before it tests that 200 level? Normally, it'll just continue up to that big round number. It's almost like the tractor beam effect from Star Trek. It just tends to draw it there. My dad had Star Trek on the TV all the time when I was growing up. So that's where that analogy comes from. So once again, was looking for another entry here. And it's powering too high for me at this point. But look at the volume behind this. So here's the exact opposite of what we looked at with Fisker, where here they're buying the stock, they're not selling it. I think we're going to see that 190 to 200 range there in AMD, and maybe sooner than I'd like. At this point in time, if it would give me a run back to 160 or a little bit of a pullback, I'd jump in again. I just can't chase these vertical moves, but that's my own disciplines, and we miss some that way. But more often than not, when you have these vertical moves, you get vertical corrections. I think that'll come in NVIDIA at some point when it hits likely 600. I think is where NVIDIA is going. So great looking stock. I think it has more upside, but if you're going to buy right now, hold your nose, and you might be right. But I'm still going to try to be a little patient here and see if maybe the shorts try to step in on Monday and we get a little bit of a pullback. As it turns out, the entry was yesterday, and you can see it closed off the highs yesterday, but then just roaring back to the upside today. So that's the space to be.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. And that move upwards would be tough to chase, and I don't think I would normally do it. Stick with your guns on this one. But this one could just keep running. This would be one of the anomalies that I see potentially catching. I mean, it's going to follow NVIDIA. It's going to keep going. And NVIDIA hitting new all-time highs, market caps above $1 trillion. And it's like, wow, oh my gosh, nobody would have predicted this 5 years ago by any means. So
it's insane. It doesn't seem like NVIDIA can do no wrong. I mean, they just
they can't. They set themselves. Yeah, they set themselves up to be in the right place, right time, with the right hardware that everybody just happens to need right now. They basically got oil right when the automobile came out, so they're the only people who have oil and gas right now. So good for them.
They're the front for sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Last one that we're going to talk about here is Meta. Question about Meta. What are you seeing on that chart there?
Another one that just defies gravity here. And look at that. So there's another one. Now on this, I looked at this as well, and we had this nice move to 340. It did give the test entry there. I didn't personally pull the trigger just because of that. How long? I mean, look at that run over the past year. So we're going back to November 2022, and that's just one heck of a run without really any sort of significant correction, more along the lines of consolidation here, and now it's gone again. So the break above 340 in the test, that would have been an entry. So look where we are here, 382 at the time we're talking, likely hits 400. I cannot imagine this stock not hitting 400, but just like what happens, Brandon, when NVIDIA hits 500, Meta hits 400, what happens then? Is that when we get some sort of at least a little pause here? When is there going to be more market rotation? We had a little market rotation in the beginning of January, but they've turned around and gone right back into these Mag 7 stocks. And I think we see 400 in Meta, and then I guess we have to reevaluate where things are. But impressive move here. The company just all of a sudden, everybody hated them. Now everybody loves them. It's amazing. Well, they quit talking about the metaverse, right, Brandon? I mean, it's all about the metaverse, and nobody liked that. And that's what happened back here is when they started, all the job owning about the metaverse, and everybody was like, I don't know about all that stuff. And so here we go lower, and they stopped. They stopped talking about it. They started focusing on their core business model again, and they've been rewarded for doing so.
Well, I think that they started to talk about the key words. The key word of the hour is AI. They started to enter back into the AI race with a couple of things they've been announcing. And so that was the 180 that they needed. And I think that's going to help them kind of push to the upside on this, Rob.
That's all you got to say. That's all you got to say. This is back in in the internet days and, the end of the 90s and
Yep.
early 2000s, remember that? All you had to have was E or I or .com or something in your name, and you caught a bid. Now, if you say AI, you catch a bid. So that's the market is looking towards those stocks. And so you're right. Anytime any company mentions that they're focusing on it, they're attracting dollars.
Nope, you're not wrong there. I mean, you talk about market rotation. I think we're going to start seeing that a little bit more. The new asset classes have been made. I don't know if you saw this last week, a couple of weeks ago on the 10th, the ETFs got approved for Bitcoin, right, Rob? And right now, I think the new asset class was created. Bitcoin, you saw, hit almost 50,000 that day. And I think we talked about this a little bit prior. We said there was going to be a little bit of a sell-off after this got announced. But right now, we saw a sell-off. I mean, we're down about 20% from that wick. It was almost a wick, but it was a steady rise up to 49,000, then back down, sitting about 41,000 right now, it looks like, on your chart there through the HUBB software. Bitcoin is one of those things. Yeah. But I mean, check out CNBC. Have you seen CNBC today? You're going to start seeing this more and more. Right now on CNBC, you can see that ad right at the top, front and center. VanEck starting to put ads out there that you can now hodl your Bitcoin. I don't know if you've heard this expression before, but their Bitcoin ETF, the ticker symbol is actually hodl, HODL, Rob. So you can go hodl your Bitcoin over at VanEck. You can buy and hold that sucker, but you're going to start seeing these ads everywhere. And as we approach the halving, I don't know if you saw this as well, but BlackRock has now already in 4 days become the third fastest to reach $1 billion in assets, hitting a milestone. They're comparing themselves against Michael Saylor and his fund and stuff and how he acquired his assets. But in just 4 days, able to reach $1 billion in assets for Bitcoin. They have been purchasing their Bitcoin over the counter, and I'm not sure if everybody knows what that means, but basically off the exchanges, so it's off the books. They're buying all their Bitcoin. At some point, this Bitcoin is going to be dried up completely. There's going to be nowhere else for BlackRock or the other funds to purchase this Bitcoin, and they're going to have to take to the exchanges. And at that point, you're going to see a move in Bitcoin like I don't think you've ever seen before. You're going to look at 69,000 as the all-time high. You're going to look at that in the tailpipe and say, what the heck was that? Because you're going to see a mass influx of purchase orders as more and more people from this advertising start buying into Bitcoin. And not only that, we have the halving coming up. It looks like April 18th is the new date for the halving. Once that happens, you're going to see only 450 new Bitcoin produced every single day. And with BlackRock buying 6,000 Bitcoin a day, you can see where there's going to be a little bit of a supply shock. So you think a short squeeze is in the works here for the S&P? Think of that on steroids here for Bitcoin coming up here soon when that supply shock comes through. I see a lot of potential here in the Bitcoin market, Rob. I'm just
throwing it, pounding the table, as they used to say. Remember that? You hear that all the time. Pounding the table. Brandon's pounding the table on Bitcoin. I'm glad to hear it. I got to ask you about Ethereum real quick, though. It didn't get hurt quite as bad as Bitcoin. It followed it on the run up, went right to that Wave 5 target, and has pulled back a little, but nothing like the pullback in Bitcoin. So are you viewing the same thing on Ethereum? Will that Bitcoin rally draw it with it, or what's your thoughts there?
Interesting that you should mention that. So Ethereum is a little bit different. Have you watched? Can you pull up the Bitcoin? Can you pull up the Ethereum Bitcoin chart on the HUBB software? I don't know if it's able to do that or not. But if you pull up that trading pair, okay. So if you were to be able to pull up the Ethereum Bitcoin trading pair, you'll notice that Ethereum is down quite a bit on the year compared to Bitcoin. Bitcoin's run up about 120% over the last 12 months. Ethereum's only ran up like 50, 60%. So it's lagging quite a bit. So that plays a small part of what's happening right here. But also, once the Bitcoin ETF got approved, you saw the new filings go in for BlackRock of the Ethereum ETF. They have their deadline coming up here in May. So that is the rotational play. People are now moving over to the buy the rumor play with Ethereum ETF in the same way that they were playing the Bitcoin play. So Ethereum over the next 2 months is going to hold up a little bit better. but now I think it's already held up. I still think it has some room to run in comparison with that ETH Bitcoin pair, and it's going to keep running. But Bitcoin is going to push up as well, but Ethereum is going to push up more. So if I were to play one of those two over the next 2 months, it would be Ethereum, looking at just those as a comparison.
Bit of catch up there, huh?
Yeah, exactly. That's where it's sitting, and I think that's going to continue here. Ethereum has its downsides, but right now, that's the only thing in people's eyes right now, and so that's where we're looking.
Any further thoughts on Cardano or any of the alts, or are you staying with the big boys?
Cardano's struggling. I mean, I would say in my portfolio, Cardano's about a 2%er. If we're gonna be honest with everything going on, holds about 2 to 3% of my portfolio. So Cardano is big issue is they basically are in a world of their own. That blockchain, that layer one over there, they're on their own little globe, doing their own little things, and they seem to be losing relevancy as far as their advancements in terms of what's happening. They were far ahead, but now they're starting to lag again because they've been so far behind in updates, even though they've been coding every single day, which is insane. And I think their midnight protocol might be by the wayside now because there's no need for a layer 2 on Cardano when their layer 1 is so efficient. Why would you need to play that game? So I think they're starting to realize that they should have just focused on their layer 1 more so and just kind of like ran with that. And they need more partnerships. They need more exposure. They need a new user base. Their user base is so strong, but they need more adoption. And without that, it's just Ethereum just is working head over. I mean, even though Ethereum is so inefficient, they're still working with all the ERC20s, and they still have all those the adoption there. And so Cardano's just not going to come. I don't know, man. Cardano's going to struggle for a little bit. Still a good play, but just not as good a play as maybe some of these other ones. So that's where I'm at on that. But that was a good question. So I appreciate that.
Gotcha. Yeah, and I always like to hear your thoughts on the cryptos.
Yes,
you know more about them than anybody else I know. So.
I know. Well, as always, I really appreciate your insight in the market. I was wondering what you were going to say about the S&P hitting new highs today. I think that's something that you're going to watch, and I imagine you're going to cover that over on the Evo channel here in a couple hours. Again, you probably hit a little bit on that. Everybody, if you have not seen Rob over on the Evo channel, go ahead and go over there. But subscribe here to the HUBB channel. We're here every Friday. Rob is going over in depth what's happening in the market, and his insight is valuable to me and hopefully to all of you as always. As for now, we will see you in the next one.
Have a great weekend, everybody.